Salutations, my divine friends, and welcome to Earth. Earth is art. Earth backwards is art. Earth art. The mystery, the magic of the star tetrahedron, divine power, the upper triangulation, and the divine feminine, the lower triangulation, unified in the mystical marriage that then creates light activation and manifestation. And of course, everything is formulated from consciousness. I was in meditation a couple of days ago and formulating the star tetrahedron, and then feeling at the very center where all of these facets come together is the dodecahedron, meaning 12 facets. So this is then the 12 faceted dodecahedron that is spinning at the very core of the star tetrahedron. And we've talked about how as the spirit of breath source arises forth through those 12 facets of the dodecahedron, it's like a prism. We know that when we shine sunlight through a prism, we then have the rainbow. So in the same similar way, the dodecahedron is a prism, and its source arises from inside out, what we might call the black hole of the void creation. It then touches the facets of the dodecahedron and then fractures into the 12 facets of creation, which are the 12 numbers, the 12 tones, and the 12 colors. And as I was sitting in meditation, thinking about feeling into the 12 colors of emanation that were arising forth from within and then being breathed out around me, I had the realization that it's from the three primary colors, red, blue, and yellow, that all colors can be created. And so that was a little bit of a conundrum, because I was thinking, okay, here's the 12. But as I sat with it longer, I began to feel and to realize that the upper triangulation is fire, which is red, the first emanation of power, fire, red, and then the mirroring of fire, which is then the lower triangulation, is then blue, water, the divine feminine. And so as they're then spinning together, it then creates the yellow or gold that is the emanation or the sunlight. And so it's really consciousness. This is my feeling that consciousness, first of all, had to formulate with the three colors, red, blue, and then yellow, the star tetrahedron. And consciousness formulated that. And then at the opening, there was then the facet of the dodecahedron. So it was the three, yes, create the 12. Quite interesting. And so in the very beginning, it wasn't so much the emanation of the 12, it was the formulation of the three that then allowed then the dodecahedron to be created. And then as it streamed forth through the facet of the star tetrahedron, it then literally became light activated into manifestation. And so fire and water and light within and through the star tetrahedron then were the product of manifestation. So pretty clever, that source being, I'm thinking. And so everything being just consciousness, source emanating light, wanted to explore all the possibilities of consciousness. And so, essence, breath streaming forth, but then consciousness decides what it will formulate it into becoming. That's the focusing of mind that brings attention and imagination, love upon that which we choose to create. And in our creation, it is our belief systems, what we believe and what we feel, both consciously as well as unconsciously. And of course, so many humans carry around such a deep, undiscovered wellspring of unconscious feelings, essence within. And they keep using the mind to believe, well, if I keep focusing upon more prosperity or power or love or grace, then I'll be happy. But then there are these underlying tones of essence that then emanate out, which become, fear and worry, and prosperity is not flowing, and things aren't good enough, and there's a shadow world that I have to be aware of. And then we literally create validation for what we believe and feel. I was working with a client this morning and becoming fairly illuminated with wisdom. But then this individual is saying, as I'm becoming more illuminated, I'm feeling that there are forces out there that are trying to maybe put barriers up or stop me or not allow me to go forward with this magic that I'm bringing. And I reflected with this person that there's nothing out there. There is a field of consciousness that is like a giant ocean of substance that whatever you believe and feel it to be, it becomes it. And so if you believe there are forces out there that are seeking to thwart you or to stop you, or the manipulation and control of the world is overshadowing my ability to have prosperity, you'll create validation for that. Individuals, people, circumstances, situations that say, it's not moving and easily and effortlessly for me. It's not flowing. Prosperity is not arising. There are forces that are masculine coming to my life to manipulate me. It's that false masculine out there. And if that's your belief, you'll create that. It's just wonderful that whatever we believe and feel quickly validates our perception. And if we're attuned to that, and we see, feel anything out there that bothers us, we have to then stop and ask ourselves, okay, what's inside of me that feels that way? And it's not that you, the persona, is that way. It was a program from childhood when you were vulnerable from 0 to 7, and you then literally picked up the feeling tone of someone controlling you or someone manipulating you or someone, you're with your toys and you're having a great time playing in this way, and the person comes in and says, no, that's not appropriate, or you should be doing it this way. In that moment, it's a feeling that I'm not good enough in my expression of my creative joy. And it's subtle, very, very subtle. But nevertheless, because it's quietly vibrating within, you want to find it. And the way to find it, if you're not really conscious of bringing light down within and through, and being highly aware with your sensitive nature of where light might not be flowing fully within every cell and tissue and blood and bone of my body, because that's where it's hiding, then Spirit has given you the grace of simply creating it in the world. And you say, well, it's that person there. They're stopping me, or I didn't get the loan, or whatever it is. It could be 1,001 things. But it's just you seeking validation outwardly of what the program is internally saying to you at the most deep emotional feeling level. And in the same vein, you as a soul wanted as a child to be manipulated and controlled and overshadowed with those forces that thwarted you because you wanted to learn about seeing and feeling those forces in the world of manipulation and control and power and powerlessness and frustration, and then finding within you, which is feeling the darkness of those energies, because that's what they are. They're a shadow of darkness. And as you then feel that shadow within you, the sadness, the grief, the powerlessness, the lack of self worth, the worry, and you don't dislike it or judge it, but you realize, oh, here is a gift of awakening for me, the possibility of learning to find and feel how I, in another incarnation, may have been manipulative. And it has now come back as my karma to be within my body, that I can now settle in through that feeling of manipulation. And not dislike it or judge it, but even realize this darkness, it's a gift. And as you settle through that emotion, that darkness, in total non judgment, you then begin to find and feel, well, what within felt manipulated and controlled. And you will always find yourself as a child, vulnerable from 0 to 7, who felt some overshadowing of some negative energy within the household, the parental, the societal world. And you simply took it on and put it in your bones and your body and your blood and your liver and organs, and it was hidden away. But as you bring the light back in, the light of love, and don't dislike the shadow, but flow through it and then love yourself unconditionally, the shadow disappears. It transmutes from the lead of the unconscious into the gold of wisdom. That's what alchemy means. It means simply that you are transmuting the lead and the shadow of the unconscious into the gold of wisdom and love and peace. And because that is now what you are embodying and feeling and believing, you then, of course, create validation everywhere for that. Everyone is generous and loving, and prosperity flows, and life is just beautiful and exquisite. At the same time, because you have embraced the shadow world and gone through it with love and alchemized it, bringing it back into wisdom. When you look in the world and you see the shadow world out there of things that, yes, are manipulative and controlling and, fighting and wars and on, you don't dislike it or judge it or criticize it. You realize, oh, source consciousness is simply creating disguises of manipulation and control and fighting in order to learn how to love and gather more wisdom for that particular aspect of God's source energy. And so everywhere you look, you can see the shadow and the light, but you look through the shadow because you don't resist it and you don't dislike it. And you then see and feel at the very deepest of all creation, there's only consciousness, just light, just source, just what you might call God putting on disguises of shadow and light to play all the possibilities of creation, whatever you could imagine. That's what Source is wanting to experience. It's infinite. But at the same time, in all that shadow play, more wisdom and love is gathered within the fields of consciousness And thus the universe expands in love and wisdom and possibilities of more creative joy for the shadow and light play. And once again, if a part of you is disgusted with it or dislikes it, or even wants to change it, this is another thing I was sharing with my friend today. She was saying, I need to change things out there. They need to be different. Well, that's manipulation and control. If the shadow world is dancing with itself in order to gather information, then it's perfect. It doesn't mean that we don't have compassion and don't address with righteousness and with grace, hunger and homelessness, but we're not trying to change it. We're simply gifting it with love and possibilities. But if it still wants to be homeless or be powerless or be in the ghettos through pain and suffering to grow, it's a choice of that particular entity. And we really don't have the right to take that choice away. Now, when the great healer Jesus saw people who were covered in shadow, he could see inside the light, the divine and sacred light. And so he didn't try and change them. He simply emanated the golden light of love and illumination so potently that it went through all of their shadow and ignited that which is within all creation, the light of source. And as that catalyst touched all of their inner being of truth and wisdom and light and love, it began to vibrate and the shadow fell away and they were healed. But then he said, go forth and sin no more. Because if you go forth and once again have beliefs of separateness and manipulate and control, you'll put the shadow around you and pain and suffering and dis-ease will be yours again. And so I was kind of sharing with this individual that my truth is that there's only perfection within the world. Again, we can address the homelessness, we can address the hunger, we can be righteous in our actions every moment. We're not trying to change anything. We're not trying to change the environment or the world, or, we're simply igniting the perfection that already exists within all creation. And that's what love does. And we learn about that through having the shadow within us. Everyone that I'm speaking to had some issue in their childhood of feeling alone or separate or fearful or worried. So we all know the shadow. But if we fall through the shadow and bring love to that which is within, source, child of magic, and it awakens back into life, we realize, oh, the shadow was an illusion. It was bringing possibilities of information and wisdom, but it was really an illusion. And that's what's really going on in the world when we only see the shadow. It's an illusion. Imagine you go to a play, and these are really great actors and actresses. And let's say maybe it's King Lear, and they can really play their parts, and you're in the audience, and oh, you're feeling fearful for some, and you're being worried for others, and this one's being slain, and this one is being, overshadowed with terror, and you're feeling all that. And then at the end of the play, there's lots of bodies from all that have been slain in the play. But after the curtain call and the applause, everyone gets up and takes off their disguises and they bow and they say, well, thank you. I played my part well. I tricked you. And that's all that's happening in life. You're being tricked into believing that there's something in error out there. But the beauty of it is when you're tricked and you then feel the emotion, the dislike, the judgment, the criticism, there's the gift. Even the stress and the dis-ease you feel, there's the gift. If you settle through it in non-resistance, find the emotion. Every emotion has every disease has an emotion. And then you keep moving deeper within and find that child of magic, which is but a hologram of the divine soul that has been placed in time space. And then bring love to yourself. You have transmuted ignorance, the lead of ignorance, into the gold of wisdom. You become the divine alchemist. And this is what the being Jesus and Buddha and many other sacred beings were able to do. They achieved that by learning to be the alchemist inside their own bodies, inside their own environment within themselves. And then they become brilliant lights that do shine so much light upon the world that it feels that magic of possibilities, that awakening into a new realm of wonder and glory. And they go, I would like that. And these beings say, yes, it's the kingdom, it's within you. Whatever I am, you are. Whatever God is, you are. And so we then, through their light, which you and I in our meditation and our new changing of our environment by our bodies and our light and our joy, there's more radiance, which is illuminating more of the shadow world out there. But at the same time, the shadow world is becoming so tenuous. It crumbles so easily now because it's an illusion. It's not based upon really truth, but at the same time, it's a gift of awakening and possibilities. So the beauty of it is there's several ways to find the shadow. One of the most poignant for people, again, is to, again, literally from within, manifested in the world as something to dislike and judge and criticize. And that can be somewhat painful because you're always then being knocked off your center and getting your buttons pushed. And that can then lead you to your meditation experience where you begin to interface, you begin to quiet the mind, and you touch into the golden light of the soul, which is the perfection of the being you already are. That is the one that is really playing within time, space. And as that is flowing down within and through, you become sensitized to it. It becomes very visceral and real and kind of tender and loving. And as you let it flow through you and you're watching it and feeling it in its love and tenderness flow through, all of a sudden it stops. And here's a place where some constriction or a feeling of some tension, well, that's an emotion. It could be in a knee, it could be in a hip, it could be in a shoulder. It could be tension behind the shoulder blades, the heart. But as you're settling into it in non-resistance and non-judgment, the golden light of pure consciousness opens it up and begins to allow it to breathe. And as you settle into it, you begin to invite the emotion that's there. The emotion wants to be found. The child wants to be free within you. And so as you're there in non-resistance, the emotion begins to bubble up and surface. And there's your opening. You then go, I am the golden light of love and joy that is now flowing through this shadow feeling. As I'm flowing through, I'm now moving ever closer to the essence of this divine childlike being I am, which is a vibration that is in the very deepest core of your being. It's the hologram of perfection that was seeded into your body when you were born. Will never go away, it's always there. And as you're then settling in and finding that perfected hologram of that magic, that childlike splendor, you touch it and it feels the acknowledgement of source, divine light there with it, and it begins to vibrate back into life. And thus, by embracing the darkness, you have transmuted it back into the wisdom of love, that when you then see that darkness in the world, your response is, someone wasn't loved. And that's compassion. And then you then simply emanate light and love to them. And if there's hunger, and in your heart it feels righteous to serve them in their hunger, you serve them. So we don't sit and do no thing. We emanate light and we bring righteous action. One of the most important things we do is we work with the breath in literally seeing and feeling source arising forth from within the dodecahedron to then touch the facets of the star tetrahedron. The dodecahedron is the jewel in the lotus, and at the very, of course, doorway is the void. Just at the very center of every galaxy, there's a massive black hole. Well, the black hole is simply where source is emanating consciousness out that then becomes the stellar star system and the planets and the life that that particular entity is creating. And it is an entity. So when we move to the very center of the dodecahedron and we are at the doorway, we're sitting there, so to speak, in our in-breath, we're allowing source to arise forth into this dimension. And then with our out-breath, we are then literally collapsing into the manifestation we choose. Golden, liquid sunlight and peace emanating through all of my tissues, bones, out into the world. I am the light. So I'm going to take you through about maybe 3 to 5 minutes of breath. So it's best if you do breathe, so don't stop breathing. I won't have many students after that. So let's close the eyes and feel the body relaxing, please. And simply being aware that I am consciousness. And I have formulated a body within which to dance within the worlds of this dimension. And I can allow my consciousness to settle into the body, feel it expanding, opening, and letting go. Creating space within all the tissues. Then allowing yourself to settle into the very center of the heart chakra, the doorway into the divine. And with in-breath, breathing in You are literally bringing source from inside out into this dimension. And without breath, you are collapsing it into golden liquid sunlight and peace. From the unmanifest breath to the manifestation of golden sunlight and peace. This is how all creation occurs. It arises forth from out of the void as breath, and then consciousness focuses and collapses it into manifestation. I am the light. I am consciousness sitting at the doorway. On one side, the void eternal, and spirit breath arising forth into the fields of manifestation to be sunlight and peace. I am the light. I am the breath of creation. I am source breathing throughout the universe. Breath is life. Life is light. I breathe and I bring light. I am the field of consciousness, the ocean of one great universe. This my form for this point in time, space. Breathing the unique qualities into this earthly sphere. One of the most magical playgrounds in creation. And I am the breath that creates, that brings light. And my breath, through the open doorway of the I am, into manifestation and creation. And another deep breath, knowing I am the void and I am manifestation and I am the doorway. I am that I am. And then very easily now, Slowly coming back into the moment of the now. As I was speaking earlier about my cognizing that the upper triangulation is fire, red, and the lower triangulation, divine, feminine, blue, water, I've been having a lot of really good experiences as I sit at the open doorway, and not only do I imagine now the star tetrahedron, but I actually see this fire red movement. It makes it even more visceral and real. And below, this beautiful watery blue, feminine, expansive feeling. And then as they're uniting, then the ignition of golden liquid light from out of the very center. So I invite you to play with that as I take you through the formulation. And then I will join with you, and we will bring light into this wonderful earthly dimension. So once again, as we sit quietly, realizing I am a field of consciousness, I can simply bring my attention to the very center of the heart chakra, the doorway to the divine I am. I observe above me the triangulation of the divine masculine, red and fire, gently moving left to right clockwise. It's not a fire that burns, it's a fire that warms. And I observe beneath me the triangulation of the divine feminine, the expansive blue of water and peace, gently flowing right to left. Fire and water unite in the very center, in the mystical marriage that is the ignition of the Christ energy, sunlight. I am the light. I breathe and bring light to all creation. I will join with you, and we will ignite magnificent light. And very easily now. slowly coming back into the now. One of the fun things you might want to be aware of when you're doing your meditation with the fire and the water and the gold is that really every cell and atom in your body is co-participating in that same dance. So even though you're formulating it around and through you, every cell is really made up of the same thing. So, as well as the universe. So you can connect with as much as you would like, even Mother Earth, same vibration. There's just consciousness. All right, my dear friends, thank you for coming and playing in the light. Marvelous. And we will see you soon.